Once upon a time, in a village far, far away, there lived an old king and his 3 beautiful, lovely, voluptuous, I think they were blonde, daughter princesses. Now, the old king and his 3 daughter princesses lived in a lovely village, a beautiful village. It was a lot like Camelot before all that infidelity. And that story, Much Ado About Nothing, I think it was written by Shakespeare, where everybody goes to a party morning, noon, and night. They don't seem to have a job, and by the end of the story, they all have working relationships. The farmers were happy. The peasants were happy. The maidens were lovely and happy. The children, the littles were happy. The teenagers. The corn was happy. The hay was happy. The cows were happy. The pigs were happy. The chickens were happy. In fact, it was such a happy village that the ducks, they made way for the ducklings. Even the soybean was happy. But the one thing about this village, which is also true in America no matter how much Botox we use, is you can't stop aging. And the king was getting older. And he was getting ready to pass on, to go to the great castle in the sky, to that word in America that we hate to say, die. And he was very, very, very concerned because he had no sons, which I don't see as a problem, but he did, but then I'm just the storyteller. And he had to figure out which of his daughter princesses was going to be queen. So he called them into his chamber. Daughters, daughters, come into my chamber. And his daughter princesses were out doing princess things. I know that because I love to do princess things. And they heard their dad, and they're very obedient. And they said, yes, daddy, daddy, daddy. And he said, daughters, I grow old and I will be going to that great castle in the sky. And I need to know which of you 3 loves me the most. Now, personally, on a psychological standpoint, I think that is the worst question any parent could ever ask a child. But I'm just the storyteller. So he looked at his oldest. She went on to become a porn star later. Daddy, I love you as much as all the jewels in this kingdom. And 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kingdoms beyond. And the father went, He was a very automata poetic king. Kings can be that way. It's a lot like, Cher doesn't need a last name. So then he looked at his middle daughter. Well, she had middle daughter syndrome, kind of like, hi, Dad, here I am. Look at me, the young one and the old one. I'm here too. But she was smart, a lot like Kate from Charlie's Angels. So she thought, and then she said, Dad, I love you as much as all the oil in the Middle East, and we all know it's going to $4 this summer. And the father went, nice. He said a word, and the daughter said, yes, yes, yes. He noticed me. He saw me. Well, actually, she said that to her therapist later on that week. Then he went to his 3rd. She was the youngest, and we know how these fairy tales go. She was the most beautiful, the most lovely, the most compassionate. Everybody in the village loved her. She was a lot like those Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, that they go like, yeah, 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 and the hair falls perfectly into place without a comb. She could eat anything and not gain a pound. Oh, and our secret. The father loved her the most. So he was waiting. Now, she was a very grounded child, and she said, Dad, I love you as much as I love salt. Salt! Salt! He was so mad he spit. Salt! you love me as much as mere table salt? Daughter, you are banished. You're banished, 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 banished. Ooh, he loved him some Shakespeare. He also loved old reruns of Star Trek, you know, where James Kirk says to Spock, Spock, I think we are banished from this planet. But she got it. She was evolved. And she looked at her dad, and she left, and as she did, the cook gave her a basket of food, and I think the bread was still warm. And she began to walk, and she came to a dark forest, and it was scary. And it was a lot like that forest that Harry Potter goes to with that guy with the name that we're not supposed to say, you know? When all of a sudden, she came across a little old lady. Flash, sorceress. Now, the little old lady had been in the forest all day long and had found no berries or mushrooms, and she was hungry. But the little girl, she was hungry too because she had been going. But remember, she was compassionate. So she gave the little old lady, Flash, sorceress, the food. And she ate it up. And had a lot of protein, so it went directly to her head, and she kind of looked, and she saw this little girl, and she said, little girl, what are you doing in the forest all alone? And the little girl, you know, the whole banished it. And the little old lady got mad. I mean, she got like woman mad. And she said, I banished the salt from the kingdom. And she took the little girl's hand, and they got a rockin' cottage on the edge of the forest, all expenses paid, including AC. Now, back in the village, the people were just going about their day. They didn't know the salt had been taken. And all of a sudden, they kind of started not feeling so good. You know, a lot like February. And they were sinusy, and the children got ashen, and some of the animals died. And the king, remember the king? You know, he wasn't getting any older. You know what they say? You're not getting any younger there, Jane. I mean, you're not getting any younger there, king. And he was, in fact, dying. And they took him into his bedchamber, and they laid him on his bed. It was a big bed, king size. And there was like a sheet and another sheet and a third sheet in case those got dirty, and then there was like a thin blanket and a thicker blanket, and there was a comforter, and then there was a duvet, and then there was like this bed skirt that sort of matched the duvet but didn't. It was like really shabby chic, and then there was like 39, 42 pillows, so he couldn't lay like this, he laid like this. It was like Pottery Barn gone mad. And he was like laying there, he was like this pillar of salt with no salt. Now, the little girl, she knew something was wrong. She was an intuitive, a lot like that kid from Sixth Sense. And she said, little old lady, I must go. And the little old lady said, no, you cannot leave me. And the little girl said, yes, I must go. And she grabbed the hoe and she said, no, little girl, I love you so much. And the little girl said, I must go. And I know you're a sorceress. And she took off. And she ran. I mean, she was fast. And she got to the kingdom, and she got to the bedroom. And at first she couldn't see her dad, and then there was like a cough and all that stuff moved. And she was like, Daddy, Daddy, I'm here. And the father said, Daughter, daughter, I know you love me the most. You loved me as much as salt. And they hugged, and she got rid of all those pillows. And the sorceress, she was really evolved, did a lot of woman's work. So she put the salt back in the kingdom, and everybody was healthy. The children were healthy. The peasants were healthy. The maidens got their maiden forms back. The farmers were healthy. The children, the teenagers, the ducks were happy. The soybeans were happy. And why? Why do I tell this story? Why do I tell this story? Because I think art is like salt. It courses through our veins, and it is essential in keeping us alive. It sustains body, mind, soul, the heart. So I asked myself, when in the timeline of man and woman, when in the history of Homo sapiens sapien. Did art get second billing? Why is this something we do if we have extra time, extra money? It's extracurricular. Art is a motivator. It enhances and builds self-esteem, self-confidence, and teamwork. It aids in concentration. It develops social and emotional skills. It is known that if there is good arts education, verbal skills are up, problem solving and critical thinking are enhanced, and the brain functions at a higher level. Oh, and art heals. And Lord knows we need healing in this country. Art teaches compassion. Art, like salt, goes to the core of our being, and it gives us an open mind, a new way of seeing, many ways of seeing, many views. Art becomes a decoder. It enhances and pulls together our community. In fact, the Indo-European definition of art means to fit together. So here we are. It's 2013. Our most important, precious, vital, beautiful, and often forgotten natural resource is our children. And I mean all children, not a select few. In fact, I mean all adults. So why is it that just a select few, usually those with means, get a diet of arts education, and the rest, a vast majority, go without? Art education levels the playing field, and it is the link to everything we want for our children, everything we want for ourselves. So education is connected. Math is connected to the sciences. The sciences are connected to social studies. Social studies are connected to reading. Reading is connected to the languages. The languages are connected to art. It completes the circle. If one of those parts is missing, it's not a circle. And it's not complete. We're not complete. So, education minus art, that's what I call the Stepford child. They can't think outside of the box. They're followers, not leaders. You give them a challenge, they come up maybe with one answer, and then they say, am I right? Now, education plus art, that's the whole, complete, creative child. You give them a challenge, they come up with 50 or 60 different solutions, and they can't wait to try them all. They don't understand the word wrong. They just want to do it. And that whole, complete, creative child becomes the whole, complete, creative adult, the perpetual learner, constantly evolving and developing, not scared of change. So is there some imaginary wall, some voice that goes off inside of our head that says, gosh, can't do art anymore, gotta go out and get that real job? Our creative souls are being crushed. Art education is multi-pathway learning. You can learn from this way, this way, this way, this way. It allows for the beauty and the differences in children and adults in their learning skills. It doesn't rely on one way to learn. So my vision is art for all. And for the last 30 to 35 years, we have watched it extracted from our schools, extracted from our nation, extracted from our communities. We cannot let another generation go art-free. I want to take that word extracurricular and get rid of the word extra. I want it to be curricular, curriculum, put it back in the schools. We're in the process of growing our next generation of workers. So we know that art education levels the playing field. And with the challenges that we have today and the challenges that we have tomorrow that we don't even know what they are, we need creative, problem-solving, critical thinking workforce. We need to invite children and adults back into the world of arts education. How? I envision an army of artists, an army of passionate individuals in their form, being taught to be passionate master teachers of their form. And I want them to invade the schools, the community, our nation. Now, I am not talking about the language arts teacher who sort of kind of did music in high school, sort of kind of being the music teacher. His or her specialty is language arts. No, I'm talking about the musician, the actor, the dancer, the photographer. I want them to go back into the schools with their transformational message. Our children need art. We adults need art. Senior citizens need art. Our returning vets desperately need art. I think Wall Street needs art. I think our banking system needs art. I think corporate America needs art, and I think our politicians need to get into the first art class effective immediately. I'm not building artists. I'm actually building citizens. Creative, compassionate, problem-solving, critical thinking citizens. This is a psychic change, and it is going to take time, but we need to start now. Because if art is everywhere, why is arts education disappearing? I'm going to say that again. If art, which is like salt, is everywhere, why is arts education disappearing? Because art, like salt, is like when I go into the restaurants and I look at every single one of the tables, and on every single one of the tables there's salt, and at the end of the night we marry the salt so we don't run out. And when I go to people's houses and I look inside their cupboards, which I often do, there's always salt there. Salt, like art, is everywhere. It's in the museums, it's in the opera, it's in the ballet and modern dance companies, it's in the theater, it's in the clothes we wear, it's in the iPods we listen to. Art, we cannot go art-free, and we cannot go salt-free, and art is not free, it costs. Because art is life, is salt, is art, is life, is salt, is art, is life, is salt over the shoulder. Art over the shoulder, salt over the shoulder, art over the shoulder, salt of the earth, art of the earth, salt of the earth, art of the earth. We all pray at the Chapel of the Arts. And I know I preach to the converted when I say we cannot let another generation go art-free. Alleluia! Amen. Shalom. Namaste.